On the surface, the new South Park episode looks like pure chaos. A turkey trot funded by Saudi Arabia, protests breaking out, the military filming TikToks, and kids sprinting for 5 grand. But look a little closer, and it becomes something else entirely. Why is a small American town suddenly bending over backwards for Saudi money? And how did a simple Thanksgiving race turn into a political circus? Today, we're breaking down exactly who South Park is roasting this time, from sports washing and media-driven militarism to political panic and moral hypocrisy. And at the end, I'll show you a detail most viewers completely missed. Let's get into it. South Park has always used small-town absurdity to expose big national problems. And in this episode, everything starts with something simple. The town is broke. Businesses have shut down, people are out of work, and even their annual Thanksgiving turkey trot can't find a sponsor. So when Saudi Arabia suddenly offers to bankroll the entire event, no questions asked, the town doesn't hesitate. They grab the money, slap the Saudi logo on everything, and pretend nothing's weird about it. Meanwhile, the boys are forming teams to compete for the $5,000 prize, and Cartman, being Cartman, tries to pressure Tolkien into running by using what he calls race science. It's a parody of those moments when people hide bad assumptions behind the phrase, statistics say. But while the kids argue, something bigger moves into town, the Department of War, clearly modeled after Pete Hegseth and his media persona. They're not here to protect anyone. They're here to film content and extract a high-profile prisoner the town refuses to release. And from that moment on, the Thanksgiving run becomes a collision point for everything America is fighting about. Foreign influence, performative patriotism, political paranoia, and moral compromise. It's no longer just a fun holiday event. It's a miniature version of the country itself. South Park wastes no time showing what this episode is really about. The moment the turkey trot is suddenly funded by Saudi Arabia, the entire town shifts into a different mode. A familiar one for anyone watching the real world over the past decade. It's sports washing, boiled down to something as small and innocent as a Thanksgiving run. And that's exactly why it hits so hard. When the mayor cheerfully says, "If someone's gonna take their money, it might as well be us," you can hear echoes of every league, team, or institution that's justified taking Saudi checks while pretending it's completely normal. And once the money arrives, the town starts behaving the way real organizations do. People get nervous, they overthink tiny details, they literally worry about whether the running route will be acceptable to Saudi Arabia. It's ridiculous, but also uncomfortably recognizable. We've all seen versions of this in sports, entertainment, even tech. Then comes the commercial that says, insulting the Saudi royal family is strictly prohibited. It's played as a joke, but only barely. South Park is taking the quiet, unspoken pressure that exists in real partnerships and saying it out loud. The honesty makes the satire sharper. What makes this land especially well for older viewers is how closely it mirrors real headlines. Live Golf, giant media investments, the Khashoggi fallout. Anyone over 35 has watched institutions bend, pivot, and soften their stance the moment big money appears. So, when the people of South Park instantly welcome their new sponsor, it doesn't feel exaggerated. It feels familiar. And before the race even starts, the episode delivers its first message. In a struggling America, communities will trade almost any principle for financial relief. Not because they're evil, but because they're exhausted. And that's the tragedy the show is pointing at. While the town sells its integrity for Saudi sponsorship, the kids deal with a different kind of hypocrisy. One that's just as familiar. Cartman decides he needs Tolkien on his team, and the way he tries to convince him is a perfect example of South Park's ability to expose cultural nonsense with one joke. He doesn't beg, he doesn't negotiate, he pulls out something he calls race science, and the way he presents it is exactly how certain people mask their prejudices today. not as insults, not as open racism, but as objective data, as if turning a stereotype into a chart somehow makes it respectable. For Tolkien, it's not about running, it's about the sponsor. His refusal is a moral stance, a boycott, and that's where the satire deepens. Tolkien represents the people who look at Saudi sports washing and say, I don't want to participate in this. Cartman represents the loud, cynical counterargument. Who cares? Just run. It's money. Their argument echoes real debates we've seen across the country, whether it's athletes refusing to play under certain flags, celebrities declining events, or fans calling for boycotts. There's always someone saying, it's not that serious, and someone else saying, it absolutely is. Cartman, of course, doesn't care about politics or ethics. He just wants Tolkien to run because it benefits him. And that's the deeper point. Most of the time, moral outrage or moral apathy isn't about principles, it's about personal convenience. South Park shows it in the simplest way possible. One kid wants money, the other kid wants integrity, and both are being manipulated by forces way bigger than them. And watching Tolkien try to hold his ground while Cartman throws pseudoscience at him exposes a truth Americans recognize instantly. We're surrounded by people who justify their biases with charts, studies, or selective data. The show wraps that entire concept into a 2-minute argument on a doorstep. It's funny on the surface, but it's painfully accurate underneath. Once the Saudi plotline is set, the episode turns to its sharpest satire. The arrival of the Department of War, led by a character modeled almost directly on Pete Hegseth. And the way South Park portrays him tells you everything you need to know about how the show sees modern American militarism. Hegseth doesn't show up like a soldier, he shows up like an influencer. Before he gives an order, he asks for likes and subscribers. Before he acts, he makes sure the camera is rolling. And South Park isn't exaggerating. It's holding up a mirror to the way politics, military culture, and social media have blended into one messy ecosystem. For viewers over 35, this hits instantly. The post-9/11 era created a generation of media personalities who turned patriotism into branding. Flags, slogans, tactical gear, dramatic monologues, all packaged like entertainment. South Park takes that aesthetic and pushes it 1 inch further until it becomes absurd enough to laugh at and real enough to sting. Hegseth's team doesn't measure success by strategy or discipline. They measure it by how much content they collect. Every protest, every flashbang, every confrontation becomes a photo op. They literally fight with local police over who gets to film what, as if American law enforcement agencies are rival YouTube channels fighting for engagement. And the scariest part is how recognizable it is. We've all watched government agencies post recruitment TikToks, live tweet operations, live stream trainings, and frame everything they do like a highlight reel. The episode simply strips away the official tone and leaves the raw intention. They're not here to protect, they're here to perform. When Hegseth calls protesters terrorists, it mirrors a very real media habit of exaggerating threats to generate outrage. He describes minor unrest like he's reporting from Fallujah, because that's what gets clicks. And the more dramatic he makes the situation sound, the more the episode exposes how America's infotainment culture has swallowed our institutions whole. And then there's the prisoner storyline. The idea that the military has been sent to retrieve one high-profile detainee, not for national security, but because someone powerful demanded it. It's a jab at the way political alliances, billionaire relationships, and media narratives blur into the same conversation. When Hegseth says, "We need more content," he's not joking. He's summarizing the entire modern political landscape. What South Park is saying here is simple. In today's America, the line between military action and media production is thinner than ever. And when both sides chase the same dopamine hit, the truth stops mattering. As the episode escalates, South Park brings in another layer, one that feels almost too on the nose for modern American politics. The president, a clear stand-in for Trump, calls Hegseth mid-chaos and demands he retrieve a specific prisoner, Peter Thiel. It's such a bizarre combination of characters that it almost feels random until you look at what the show is really saying. Thiel isn't in the episode because he's a tech figure. He's there because he represents a very particular kind of American power. The billionaire who sits at the intersection of politics, ideology, surveillance, Silicon Valley, and influence, a figure who can quietly shape agendas without ever stepping into the spotlight. South Park pushes that dynamic to its extreme, the president unleashing the full force of the Department of War, not for national security, not for the country, but to appease one wealthy ally. It's the ultimate parody of how political decisions can revolve around elite relationships instead of public need. And the dialogue between Trump and Hegseth is intentionally absurd. The president yells at him for just making content and demands he do something real. That line works on two levels. First, it mocks Hegseth's influencer persona, the idea that everything is a media moment. But second, it mocks the president himself, someone who spent years blending government, entertainment, and personal branding into one. It's a satire of a feedback loop, the media figure who acts like a soldier and the political leader who acts like a director demanding a better performance. The whole exchange sounds less like a national security briefing and more like a frustrated producer yelling at a YouTuber who keeps messing up the shot. For Americans over 35, this lands with particular weight. The blending of politics and celebrity isn't theoretical. It's something they've lived through. They've watched billionaires become kingmakers, administration insiders, or ideological anchors. They've seen policies shaped not through public debate, but through private alliances. And when the episode frames Thiel as a prisoner whose release is worth deploying troops, it's mocking the absurd imbalance of power. Ordinary citizens fight over scraps. Entire agencies mobilize for the whims of people who already have everything. The message is clear. When political power and tech wealth become inseparable, the priorities of a government shift away from the public and toward the people who can afford to be heard. As all these plot lines collide, the episode adds another layer of satire, one that anyone in America over the last decade will recognize immediately. Just as the turkey trot is about to begin, the town hears the alarm, an Antifa uprising. Except, there is no uprising, there's no organized threat. It's just a protest. A chaotic one, yes, but not a revolution, not terrorism, not the apocalypse. And that's exactly the joke. South Park is parodying the way political actors and media personalities inflate any form of unrest into a national emergency. A handful of people shouting instantly becomes domestic terrorists. A disagreement becomes an attack on America. The rhetoric jumps straight to DEFCON 1 because panic is profitable. When the town immediately labels the situation as Antifa, it mirrors how certain networks covered protests in 2020, not as civic expression, but as existential threats. The show exaggerates it only by a few inches, which is why the satire lands so sharply for viewers who lived through those news cycles. What makes the sequence even more biting is how the different government agencies respond. The local police want to keep things calm. The Department of War wants footage, and neither group is focused on the runners caught in the middle. Tear gas is fired not for safety, not for control, but because someone behind a camera wants a better shot. In South Park's universe, and too often in ours, chaos isn't a problem, it's content. The show turns protesters, runners, and even bystanders into background extras for an interagency battle over attention. And in the process, It makes a point older viewers will feel deeply. When institutions chase visibility instead of responsibility, ordinary people pay the price. We watch participants in the turkey trot blinded by gas, stumbling through smoke, unable to run the race they came for. It's funny in the moment, but it's drawing from a very real discomfort. Protest scenes across America in recent years often looked exactly like this. Peaceful events disrupted by escalation, miscommunication, or performative force. And as South Park frames it, the real tragedy isn't the protest itself. It's the way everybody involved treats it like a spectacle. The protesters want an audience, the police want control, the military wants clicks, and the town just wants the race to happen. It's a portrait of a country where every conflict, even the small, local ones, is instantly magnified, branded, politicized, and turned into a narrative for someone's agenda. By the time the runners finally push forward through the haze, you realize the chaos isn't the exception. It's become the environment everyone expects. By the time the runners actually hit the course, the turkey trot barely resembles a holiday tradition. The route is blocked by police lines, choked with tear gas, surrounded by shouting protesters, and crawling with military crews trying to capture every second on camera. And that's the moment South Park reveals what this episode is really doing. The boys aren't just trying to win a race, they're trying to move through a landscape shaped by everyone else's agendas. Politicians, foreign sponsors, media personalities, billionaires, and institutions chasing relevance. What should be a simple, joyful community event becomes an obstacle course built out of political noise. As the kids scramble to find an unblocked path, they argue about which route is allowed under the Saudi sponsorship and which route is too risky because of the protests. It's funny because it's absurd, but it's also painfully familiar. Even the smallest decisions in modern America feel weighed down by politics, corporations, sensitivities, and someone else's expectations. Then, there's the confrontation between Cartman and Tolkien, the emotional core of the episode. Tolkien accuses Cartman of only caring about money. Cartman fires back that Tolkien is using politics as an excuse. Neither of them is entirely right. Neither is entirely wrong. That moral noise is exactly what the writers want us to feel. Tolkien wants to stand for something. Cartman wants to take advantage of something. And they both end up lost in the fog, literally and metaphorically. When they shout at each other through clouds of tear gas, tripping over barricades and screaming about morality, ethics, and responsibility, it stops being about a race. It becomes a portrait of how Americans argue, loud, emotional, convinced they're right, but surrounded by so much noise that they can barely see what they're running toward. And yet, somehow, despite the chaos, despite the confusion, despite the moral exhaustion, the kids keep running. Not because the system makes sense, but because stopping doesn't make sense either. It's South Park's way of saying, this is America right now. A country trying to move forward through a fog of politics, media theatrics, corporate influence, and culture war distractions, all while ordinary people just try to reach the next milestone. The climax isn't about who wins, it's about how impossible the race has become. When the dust finally settles, the turkey trot ends the only way it could. Not with triumph, not with clarity, but with exhaustion. People limp across the finish line. Protesters are still shouting. Agencies are still arguing over who owns the footage. The Saudi banners still hang awkwardly over the crowd. And the kids, who were supposed to just run a race, are left wondering what the hell just happened. That's the point. South Park isn't simply mocking Saudi sponsorship or military influencers or Trump or Thiel or political protests. It's showing what happens when all of these forces collide in everyday American life. The episode compresses entire systems, foreign influence, billionaire power, hyper-politicized media, institutional insecurity, into one small-town Thanksgiving event. And when everything is folded together like that, you start to see the bigger message. In today's America, nothing stays simple. Not sports, not holidays, not community traditions, not even a children's race. Everything gets absorbed into politics, branding, strategy, outrage, or someone's attempt to turn chaos into content. For viewers over 35, the episode hits with a different weight. You've watched these trends grow for decades, institutions merging with media culture, entertainment blending with governance, political movements turning into lifestyle brands, corporations shaping moral conversations. South Park's brilliance here is showing all of that without ever giving a lecture. Instead, they let the chaos speak for itself. The final image, a turkey trot derailed by foreign money, media militarism, political paranoia, and moral argument, is a metaphor for the country at large. Everyone's running, everyone has an agenda, and no one can agree on the route. And maybe that's the hidden punchline of the whole episode. America hasn't lost its traditions. It's just buried them under so much noise that we forget why we started running in the first place. If you'd like a breakdown of the smaller political references and Easter eggs hidden in this episode, let me know in the comments. And if you want more deep dive analyses of new South Park episodes, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more to uncover.